When Hugh Everett III proposed the many-worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics in 1957, the idea that the universe constantly branches into parallel versions of itself, he was working in the tradition of theoretical physics. But the philosopher who had most clearly articulated the idea that we inhabit multiple distinct realities simultaneously, each with its own internal logic and each making its own demands on consciousness, was William James, writing in 1890. James's version of the many-worlds idea appears in the Principles of Psychology, in a remarkable chapter titled The Perception of Reality. He began with a deceptively simple observation: we do not relate to all the things we know about in the same way. The characters of fiction are not real in the way that the chair you are sitting on is real. The entities of mathematics are not real in the way that the people you love are real. The visions of madness are not real, to those of us outside them, in the way that the morning newspaper is real. And yet all of these things are, in some sense, present in our consciousness. They make claims on our attention. They influence our behavior. They have, within their respective domains, a kind of solidity and consistency. James introduced the concept of subuniverses, distinct orders of reality, each with its own internal coherence, each demanding a different mode of engagement from the mind that encounters it. He identified at least 7: the world of physical things as we sense them, the world of science, which overrides common sense in important ways, the world of ideal relations, mathematics, logic, the world of idols of the tribe, the shared fictions of social life, nations, reputations, money, the supernatural world, the world of personal opinion, and the world of sheer madness and vagary. Each of these has its own reality, in the sense that within its own framework, things are consistent, certain things follow from certain others, and claims can be evaluated as valid or invalid. The question of which world is the real world, the one we should ultimately defer to, is for James a pragmatic question, not a metaphysical one. The physical world takes priority for practical navigation. You must respect the wall or you will hurt yourself. The scientific world overrides common sense when precision matters. You must respect quantum mechanics or your technology will not work. The social world overrides individual opinion in many contexts. You must respect the conventions of your culture or you will pay social consequences. But none of these worlds is privileged in some absolute, theory-independent sense. Each is real relative to the purposes for which we invoke it. This has striking implications. It means that the question, is God real, is not simply a question about an entity that either exists or doesn't. It is a question about whether the supernatural world is one that we should engage with, and on what terms, and for what purposes. James did not think this made religious belief merely subjective. He thought it meant that religious reality needed to be evaluated the same way we evaluate any other claim about reality, by asking what difference it makes, what experiences it organizes, what practices it sustains, and whether the results are good. James's subuniverses anticipate, in surprising ways, some of the most interesting contemporary thinking about the social construction of reality. The sociologists Peter Berger and Thomas Luckman, writing in 1966, proposed something very similar, that reality is maintained through social practices and that different finite provinces of meaning, everyday life, dreams, the world of science, the world of art, operate according to their own internal logics. They did not cite James directly, but the structural similarity is striking. The practical implication James drew from his theory was typically modest and useful, that the ability to shift appropriately between subuniverses, to know when you are in the domain of scientific thinking and when you are in the domain of personal opinion, to engage with fiction as fiction and with physics as physics, is a mark of genuine psychological maturity. The confusion of subuniverses, treating the world of social convention as though it had the authority of physical fact, or treating the world of personal opinion as though it were the world of mathematical demonstration, is one of the most common sources of human error and suffering. James named this confusion before anyone had the tools to analyze it precisely. Subscribe to the Psychology of William James to explore more of his timeless ideas.